Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Conscious Quest, the podcast for seekers. I am one of your hosts, Sarah Parlow, and our subject matter for today is manifestation real? Is it all just hocus pocus? Or is there actually some bona fide truth and science behind it? And is it a power that you can harness in order to bring the things that you're really desiring into your own life? In tangent with that, I am manifesting something unique today as well, which is a little extra courage. Ever since the beginning of the podcast, I have had one fear, and today I'm confronting it. And that fear is doing an episode all by myself. So while I might look put together on the outside, I'm a little nervous, but I am so here for challenges. And I also want to prove to all of you that you can also confront your own fears and get through it just fine. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Conscious Quest, the LA-based podcast where we aim to stay conscious about everything current.
All right, we're back and we're here to talk about all things manifesting. How did I come up with this idea? Manifesting has been kind of a fun experiment I've been toying with for the last couple of years. As many of you may know, there was a book that came out in 2006 called The Secret. It was written by someone named Rhonda Byrne. And this book was really about creating the life that you want intentionally. Look, the universe is sort of this incredible mirror. So whatever we're focusing and putting our attention on somehow gets reflected back to us. And I'm not just making this up. I feel that this has been my own experience. And the more that I change myself, the more the world around me changes because of the energy and the frequency that I am showing up with. So anyways, this book came out in 2006 and it got a lot of people excited about it. I remember Paris Hilton carrying a copy of that book around. And I think that there were some valid ideas that came out of that book. And a lot of the book talked about, if you're thinking these thoughts of what you want to create in life, then it just naturally is going to flow to you. And I'll agree with that on some levels, but I think it's also that there are some other things. It's a little more complex than that. So let's dig in. First of all, for me, when it comes to manifesting, one of the key things to do first is to get into a place of gratitude. That does not just mean being grateful ahead of time for the thing that you're looking to create in your life, but also just being grateful for everything that you do have in life. We often forget that, right? We are often bemoaning the things that are lacking. And if we stop for a second and think about how much we truly do have, just honestly do this as an exercise, create a list of all the things that you do have and that you're grateful for. To have a roof over your head and food in your refrigerator and a car and a laptop, that's putting you above, probably 80% of the rest of the world. So once you're in that space of being grateful for all the incredible things in your life, the next logical step is to be grateful in advance for the things that you are looking to create. And what is so special about that alone is that you are showing essentially trust in the process, trust in the universe, gratitude for your own power. And that when you create the intention and put it out there, that you have faith that it will be reflected back to you in its own way, in its own time. Yes, that is all very true. But getting into gratitude, it almost is collapsing that separation that is keeping what you're looking to create apart from you. So the other piece that comes along with this is that you want to start to think about the identity of the person who would have the thing you're already looking to create. If it's that $10,000, what would that person be who generates $10,000 to flow to them? Would they show up with their friends and their relationships? Would they show up for their business? Would they show up and be aware of what's going on in their bank account? Would they get into alignment with their dreams and goals in order to be a magnet for that? Same with relationships, and a lot of times we have to recognize that in order to have the partner that we're looking for, it's about us being that partner first. Again, using that principle of the world and the universe is a mirror. Now, a lot of this can sound very woo woo, and to some degree, I get it. But also, there might be a deeper layer there. There might be this idea of quantum physics. In other words, there are laws of the universe that operate that perhaps we're not aware of. Take, for instance, that we do have five senses and we are limited by our abilities of those five senses, which are imperfect. We can only hear within a certain range of hertz. Does that mean that sounds above or below that range do not exist? Absolutely not. Dogs hear on a different scale of hertz than we do. And so, in that respect, perhaps the laws of the universe that we are not aware of because they're beyond our ability to register or measure them, they still exist. And so, quantum physics is this really interesting field where we're discovering that there are ways that we are connected and influencing our surroundings that perhaps we're not aware of. I would love for you all to research a little bit about that on your own. You can look up the observer phenomenon or the double slit experiment and really start to understand how even us just observing the external world around us can impact and shape how it behaves or how it shows up. So, anyways, getting into that identity of that person who would have that and then taking action further is another really powerful vehicle for manifesting. So, when we show up and do some action in that direction of, well, if I want to have $10,000 come to me, I must open portals in order for it to arrive. So, yeah, you do have to buy that lottery ticket. So, sorry to break the news, but you do have to take some action and then see what the universe reflects back to you. And so it's very important to maintain a level of trust and faith when you're, quote, manifesting or projecting outwards your desires into the universe. And that means that you have to suspend disbelief long enough for it to flow to you. I have noticed, and this happens a lot for me, that sometimes I will intend for something, but then there is that quiet voice inside of me, which is could be the subconscious. It could be, my devil's advocate saying, oh, is that really reasonable? Or deeper than that, is that really something I'm worthy of? Right? Our limiting beliefs have a lot of effect on how we see the world, number one, and what we generate. And so if it's not within our realm of thinking that I could be a millionaire by the age of 30, which is past for me, but for all of you out there, then it's not likely to happen. We have to conceive it in order to receive it. So a lot of times in life, we tend to create our future from our past. So in other words, if we are not imagining a different future than our past, well, then we're sort of destined to repeat it. Again, it's sort of that quote by Jung who said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. In other words, when I am limited by what I'm thinking subconsciously or what I believe can be true, then that's all I'll get. So a lot of manifestation is pushing that envelope of dreaming bigger, of believing bigger, of suspending disbelief long enough. Now, it doesn't mean you've got to get it perfect all the time. Nobody gets it perfect all the time. There's definitely times I slip up and think, oh, that might be a little bit too ambitious. And to be true, I do feel that the universe has its own timeline and that it is going to bring back things to you in its own time, in its own way, which brings me to my next point: staying open. Stay open to the way and receive what is coming back to you. It may not look exactly like you think. Maybe that $10,000 is going to show up in a family heirloom, a ring or a necklace from a loved one. It might be worth $10,000, but it's not really necessarily cash in hand. But did the universe hear you? Did it reflect back to you? And so I think this brings in this idea of starting to build up confidence in this process. And I do believe it's helpful to start small with small things. And may I give you a couple of examples? So I'm going to give you some real life examples of me manifesting. For anybody who knows me, they know that I'm slightly scatterbrained and I'm always losing things. And so some of these things are my car keys. And the worst culprit of all for me is my AirPods. I'm constantly losing either my AirPods or the little container carrying case that they come in. And so I will give an example. A few months ago went for a walk. There's a park behind my apartment. And I love to sit under one of the trees there and put my bare feet into the grass and ground to the earth. And sometimes I'll put in my AirPods and listen to some meditation music and just zone out. And, I remember coming back home from a walk and I'm digging around in my sweater and realizing, like, I don't have my AirPods or the case anywhere. And what I did in that space is I imagined and I got into the feeling of having found that case. I could feel it in my fingers because the universe responds very well to like sensory imagination. What would it feel like to feel that case? What would it feel like to put those AirPods in and listen? So touch and sound. Um, Imagine myself finding it. So there's vision too. You can use all of your senses. The more senses, the better. It creates a bigger magnet, a stronger magnet to manifest back to you. And, I was trying to think back, where could I have left it? And I vaguely remember, like, okay, well, I remember putting them in when I was underneath the tree. And so I just started imagining myself finding them, the case there under the tree in the park. So I got in my car and drove to the park. And sure enough, I was on the phone with someone as I was doing it. And I'm like, I'm going to find my AirPods under the tree. And sure enough, lo and behold, they were there. Now, it's easy to write this off, right? And say, well, obviously you left it wherever it was wherever you left it last. And fair enough, but let's take it one step further, okay? I'm going to keep telling you stories. Over Christmas, I went home to visit my dad back in Pennsylvania. And, Los Angeles is a very large city. It's sprawling. And so LAX, which is our airport, is way on the west side by the ocean. And I live in the valley. So whenever I go on a trip, I always park my car on the west side outside of my friend's house who lives in Venice. And so I came back from my trip and it was dark and I was in an Uber and I got out of the Uber and threw my bag into the trunk of my car and drove off and got all the way home, which is like, I don't know, 30, 35 minutes with no traffic. And realized when I got up to my apartment, I didn't have my purse. It was gone. And so, panic of panic in my head, I'm like, oh my God. When I was lugging my luggage into my trunk of my car, I must have left my purse on the ground there. And I called my friend Sharon and I was like, can you do me a favor and please look for my purse outside of your house? And she did. And she's like, sorry, boo, it's gone. And so then I'm just panicking of like, oh my God, in my head, like all the things that were in that purse. And it was a brand new Michael Kors purse. So I didn't want to lose that. But of course, the cash, the credit cards, the identification, all of that. And I just sort of snapped in that moment. And I said, I'm not going to lose this. I'm going to find this. And I decided to start implementing my manifestation techniques. And so I started imagining the purse. Imagine what it felt like. Imagine the relief that I would experience when I got it back. And I get in my car, and my thought was, I'm going to drive back down to Venice, and I'm sure it's there. She just couldn't see it. And as I was driving, and this is the funny thing, a thought popped into my head of, I wonder if I left it in the Uber. Again, I'm scatterbrained. I lose stuff all the time. And so, for anyone who's done this before, you can never reach your Uber driver directly. You have to call like the national Uber hotline in order to get connected to your previous ride. And so I went through this process, and they connected me to my driver. Now, here's the give. Here's the rub. My driver did not speak English, and he did not speak Spanish, which I could kind of fake my way through. I think he was Chinese. So here I am connected to my Uber driver, pleading with him, like asking, is my purse in your car? And he cannot understand me. But I was insistent upon my manifestation. I was seeing my purse. As it happened, there was a passenger in the car who took the phone. He handed the phone to the passenger, who said, yes, I said, is there a yellow purse? And she said, yes, he has it with you. And I said, oh my God, where are you at? And she told me the address of where they were going. So I turn around in my car, head in that direction, and I'm driving downtown, which downtown Los Angeles is huge and sprawling. And again, it's dark. Reception doesn't work that well. It's very easy for your GPS to get screwed up there. But I kept manifesting, like seeing my purse on my passenger side seat of my car. And then I added the element of time. I said, I'm going to have this by 11:30 p.m. So I get down to downtown. Again, I'm like driving as fast as I can. I'm getting twist and turned around in those streets because they are a mess, of course. Any downtown, there's one-way streets. And I'm, panicking because I'm like, I don't want this guy to leave after his ride before I get there and get my purse back. Literally, I remember the moment I swooped around, I passed by the car, I saw where he was at, and I drove past him by accident. I had to circle around the block, park behind him, got out. He gave me my purse. I paid him whatever cash I had in my purse as a thank you, and literally got back into my car, purse on the passenger side, with 1 minute to spare, with the timeline that I imagined. Again, you could say this is all coincidence. And yeah, maybe on some level it could be true. But I really, again, got into that feeling of getting that purse back, imagining this scenario, and having it happen within a certain timeline. Again, I was going to go to Venice and look, around the garbage cans outside my friend's house. And here it was, the thought popped in my head of where I might have left it. And I broke through the language barrier and the possibility of getting lost downtown and missing him, the driver, and managed to pull it back into my reality. So, accept that for what it is. But those are just a few small instances. Another instance I could talk about is money, right? Money speaks to all of us. This is, again, the place where I'm trying to add value to all of your lives. How can you manifest more money? Okay. So, again, specificity really helps. Imagine a timeline, imagine an amount, and also, again, get into that identity. What would that person be like who by, April 1st, 2024 generated another $2,000 in their lives passively? Again, we can't get so much into the specifics of how it's going to happen as much as just imagining the specifics of time and amount and the feeling. Again, really getting into that feeling of how it would come across when you achieve this goal, this manifestation. The heart is a more powerful magnet than the mind. So when we're coming from a place of feeling deep inside, gratitude implies trust. Trust in the universe. Imagine that reflection coming back to you. Um, so I just really want to emphasize, getting into that feeling of having already achieved or received the thing that you are looking to create in your life. So if it's $10,000, what would that feel like? And the other key component is to do it repetitively. So repetition really works. Repeat this over and over, 2, 3, 8 times a day by just getting your mind into a relaxed state and really focusing on all of those sensory ways in which you would react when you had brought something into your life and being grateful for it. Again, these are just some really overarching principles that you can apply. It doesn't cost anything. And, the benefit is you may have some really incredible things drawn into your life. Since I've been doing my own money manifestations, I have been actually able to start generating passive income, not just from one source, but from a variety of sources. And, one instance is this week, I was really nervous. I was doing my taxes with my tax lady that I would have to pay this year because I had generated some passive income. Well, her and I finagled some write offs, and I'm actually getting money back this year. And again, it's a matter of staying in that space of like gratitude that good things can come to you, and imagining a different outcome that may have been present in the past. And again, the key is to really stay open to the ways in which things will come to you in their own timeline. Of course, again, you can set a timeline. Some people, when it comes to manifestation, timelines actually create more stress or agitate the process. So that is something that you can really play around with and see, well, how does that work for me? Other things, I want to talk about the ways in which we sabotage manifestation. And so one of those ways is really through our self talk. And a lot of us, our self talk could be quite negative. We can think a lot about our subconscious programming here. What were the beliefs that we grew up with? Specifically, when it comes to money, I grew up with this belief. I'm sure you've heard this before: money does not grow on trees. I always thought that money only came through a job and that I had to work very hard for it. And while that can be true, and I think especially in generations past, that really was the mindset, it doesn't always happen that way. Uh, One thing I'll point out is not everybody in the world works for their money. Some people receive it through trust funds or passive income, or by just being around the right people or in relationship with the right partner. And that's not something that we need to have judgment about and say, is it good or it's bad? It's just other people magnetize abundance through different vehicles. And it doesn't always have to be through slaving away on an hourly basis at your job. So these are some things that we can start to pull apart and question. Do I have to work really hard for all my money, or can I create a program online and sell it to people that I just create it once and then distribute it and sell it to people, and it generates sort of residuals or money, consistent passive income that way? Again, it's thinking outside of the box, and also it's in line with this principle of identity. For the person who was creating passive income, what would they do? How would they show up? What are the qualities that they would have? So again, it comes back to our self-talk and staying positive and affirming with our self-talk and believing that we are worthy. And if there is a worth issue, well, then that's something that we can really work through in therapy or using other modalities, like Psych K or hypnosis or self hypnosis, in order to maybe slowly over time, but at least in a consistent way, shift our limiting beliefs in order to allow for us to receive. For a lot of us, it is really hard to receive. We want to control, we want to predict everything that's happening. And there is so much power in surrender. Again, if the universe is a mirror and we are holding ourselves with this feeling of there's not enough and I'm going to be broke or I am broke and there's no money in my account, well, that's a really powerful energy to put out into the universe. And what's reflected back to us is more of the same. It's more radical and infinitely more charismatic to sit there and tell ourselves, well, this might be my current situation, but I'm imagining an existence and a life where I have a lot of abundance and the people around me get to benefit from the abundance that I have created. And in fact, it's important that abundance come to me so that I can live within my purpose and serve the world. All of a sudden, this feeling has a lot more richness and dimension and purpose to it. And therefore, this feeling becomes the magnet. So, what is it like if you did this experiment and just 3 times a day started getting into that space and having the sensory feelings of what would that look like, sound like, feel like, taste like? So, again, it's a matter of where are you holding your attention, on the negative or in the positive possibility, and sticking with that positive possibility over and over and over again. Then there is that issue of urgency. Again, we have to respect the way that things come to us in their own time. And language is powerful, and the words that we use are very powerful. When we use words like need, and this hits the subconscious mind in a certain way, right? It really hits us in a way of like, I need to do this, or I will die, or I will be completely broken or in danger, or any of those things. And that places this sort of pressure on things rather than just in our manifestations or planting our seeds. We say to ourselves something along the lines of, this is my desire, and I allow myself to have this, and I'd be okay even if it didn't happen. So, in other words, you're sort of opening up the pressure valve on it, releasing that pressure on yourself of like, this needs to happen right now. Instead, it's this sort of putting out the desire into the universe and then sort of letting it go, not white knuckle grabbing onto it, trying to control it, just saying that, you are okay either way. No matter what, we've all survived 100% of our bad days. So, sticking with this mindset, right? Because everything about manifestation truly is mindset. When our when we're in our abundance of having faith in our own creative power, being grateful for the things that we not only have but which are coming, getting into the identity of who would that person be who has those things that I'm looking to create, and also letting it go, being clear about our intentions and letting it go. And that brings us to our next quality, which is clarity. Clarity might be the top thing, so I might have done this out of order, but regardless, here we are. Clarity goes a long way in creating the life that we want. And I would imagine that that is the problem for a lot of people in the world. Again, it's very easy to passively just imagine that the way life is the way it's always going to be. A lot of folks just don't take the time to dream clear enough and big enough. And so if you don't have clarity and specificity about like what it is that you're looking to have, then how does the universe, how does it respond? How is it going to read your mind and your intention? That's where things like journaling or scripting can really come in handy. Just sit with yourself and get really clear about the things that you're looking to create and be imaginative and believe. So, one interesting thing is that the mind cannot tell the difference between whether what you're imagining is actually true or whether it is imagination. So, if your mind is this very powerful tool and magnet, why would you waste your time focusing on, you know, negative past experiences or, a broken view of the world when you could use your mind to imagine a better future and a better, more complete view of your life and of the world? Use your mind as the powerful tool that it is, because we are all co creators in our own reality. So here we are. We have talked about a lot of things in this episode. I may be rambling a little bit. Again, this is my first time doing a solo episode. I hope that it's making sense. And at the end of the day, again, I just want to make other people aware of some techniques, again, which don't cost you any money and just cost you a little bit of effort and investment of your own time. And just play with these. Maybe do an experiment. Try out some of these techniques. Again, let me go down my list. Getting into clarity when it comes to manifestation, getting into gratitude, getting into the feeling. Again, it's more powerful to get into the feeling than to just think of the thing alone. Doing it repetitiously, taking action, take the first step. The universe wants to see that you're serious. So when you take that first step, you might be surprised at how things unfold from that point forward. Again, you always have to look at your limiting beliefs, which may be standing in the way of you bringing things into your life. You want to stay open to how that intention and that desire may come back to you in its own way. Again, you want to avoid negative self talk, and you want to put out the desire without white knuckle grabbing onto it and trying to control it, and just stay present to it, allow it. So we're getting back to our original question, which is, does manifestation really work? Is it universal metaphysics? Is it quantum physics? Is it mindset? Or is it how you get into the space of showing up differently in the world? And if you ask me, I think it's all of them. I think it can be all of those things and perhaps even more. And when we use these things in order to, again, imagine a different reality than the one that we've been stuck in before, well, that's the magic. That's the alchemy. And that's the value I want to bring to all of your lives. Either way, I just really want to encourage all of you to give it a try and give it time and consistency and see how the process works for you. Again, it's okay to start small and to build from there. And I would love to hear all about how it's going. For those of you who do follow the podcast on Instagram, it's at Conscious Quest Podcast. Drop me a message or a DM or a comment below this episode, and I would love to hear your thoughts, experiences about it. In closing, I just want to say, I cannot take credit for all these ideas. This is something that has been in the collective for hundreds of years. If you look at all the greats of history, I think that they have tapped into aspects of all of this, whether consciously or not. Some of the sources that I've used for my talk today, I'm a huge fan of the Manifestation Babe, and her name is Catherine Zinkina. She is a mindset coach that I follow on Instagram, and I've done some of her programming. Please check her out at Manifestation Babe on Instagram. You can also follow my coach, Jim Fortin, and he has a lot of material about, again, being the magnet and manifesting things in your life. And visualization is one of those really powerful tools. So in the end, again, just trying to bring new ideas and concepts to you. And when you succeed in your life, the entire world succeeds alongside you. Thank you all so much for listening to my first solo episode. I cannot wait to bring more fun things to you next time. And in the meantime, stay conscious.